Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're grabbing our detective hats because we're diving into a really fascinating question. What happens when a crime scene isn't a place at all, but is scattered all over the global cloud?
So let's start with something you've probably done 1,000 times. You drag a file to the trash on your computer. You hit empty trash. Poof, it's gone forever, right? Well, when the cloud gets involved, that's where things get tricky.
Well, as it turns out, the answer is very often a big no. When you delete a file that's synced to the cloud, its digital ghost can hang around in a bunch of different places. For example, that file might end up in your computer's recycle bin and in the cloud provider's own trash folder. You can see how this is kind of a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, the trail is way more complex. But on the other, it means there are more chances to find that crucial piece of evidence.
And this slide, this really gets to the core of the problem. In the old days of digital forensics, you could physically go and seize a server. The evidence was all contained in one box. But with the cloud, where even is the box? It's shattered into pieces, scattered across data centers in different countries, all with their own set of laws. So, what's super convenient for you and me? Well, it's a total jurisdictional nightmare for the people trying to solve crimes.
Okay, let's dive in. Here's the plan for today's explainer. First, we'll set the scene. Then we'll get into that web of challenges. After that, we'll go hunting for digital ghosts. Check out the Investigator's Toolkit and wrap up by looking at the future of cloud justice. Let's get going.
All right, let's jump right in. Section 2, a web of challenges. And here we're going to really dig into why this is all so complicated, using a great report from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. You'll hear us call it NIST.
Okay, so take a look at this. What I love about this mind map from NIST is that it shows this isn't just one problem, it's a whole tangled web of problems. You can see they've broken it down into things like technical architecture, data collection, major legal hurdles, and even training. It proves that fixing cloud forensics isn't as simple as just writing a new piece of software.
So, one of the biggest hurdles, technically speaking, comes from a core idea of the cloud itself, multi-tenancy. The easiest way to think about it is like a giant apartment building. Lots of different customers, or tenants, are all living on the same physical hardware, sharing the same resources.
And that right there creates a huge problem. Imagine law enforcement needs to get evidence from one person's apartment. They can't just barge in and seize the entire building, right? They'd be violating the privacy of all the other tenants. It's this incredible legal and technical tightrope they have to walk.
And then there's the whole jurisdiction mess. This map says it all. Your data could be sitting on a server in, say, Ireland, but you're accessing it from here in the US. So, whose laws apply? Trying to get a warrant turns into this slow, bureaucratic nightmare of international treaties, which is the exact opposite of how fast digital crime moves.
Okay, so with all these massive global challenges, you have to be asking, where do investigators even start? Well, in our next section, Hunting for Digital Ghosts, we're going to see their surprisingly clever and kind of counterintuitive starting point. This quote from an expert over at the SANS Institute just nails it. The big secret? The hunt for cloud evidence? It doesn't usually start in the cloud. It starts right on the suspect's own computer or their phone or their tablet. Because all those apps we use, they leave behind breadcrumbs. And these breadcrumbs, these are the digital ghosts they're after. We're talking about all the little traces and artifacts that cloud apps leave behind. Things like a local database that Dropbox uses to cache file info, or entries in the Windows registry that prove Google Drive was used. Heck, even an anonymous sharing link you made on OneDrive can pop up in your browser history. And this is the real game changer. Just think about this for a second. An investigator can look at a local database on a computer and find proof like file names, timestamps, even file hashes for files that only exist up in the cloud, files that were never even downloaded. They can prove a file exists without ever having to touch the cloud provider's servers. So now we know where to look for these digital ghosts. That brings us to our next section. What's in the investigator's toolkit? What are the actual tools they use to pull out these artifacts?
Well, their toolkit is actually pretty varied. You've got everything from the simple vendor tools like Google Takeout, which just gives you a big data dump, to these commercial powerhouses like Magnet Axiom for super deep analysis. And then, for those quick targeted jobs on a live system, a lot of investigators turn to some really cool open source tools.
So let's walk through an example with one of those tools. It's called KAPE. That stands for Crawl, Artifact, Parser, and Extractor. It's pretty slick. An investigator points it at a live computer's drive. They pick a profile, say cloud storage, that already knows exactly where all the Dropbox and Google Drive artifacts live, and they just hit go. The tool then zips everything up into one neat little package, a virtual hard drive file that's all ready for analysis.
So how fast is this? I mean, are we talking hours? Days? Nope. In the demo from our source material, this whole process, finding and packaging up every single one of those digital ghosts from multiple cloud services, took, wait for it, 59 seconds. Less than a minute. That is just incredible, especially when every second counts in an investigation.
Okay, so let's pull back for our last section here. We've seen the crazy challenges and some really clever solutions. But what does it all mean for the future of cloud justice?
At the end of the day, what we're really looking at is this constant race. It's a high-tech game of cat and mouse. You have cloud providers making their systems more and more complex, which can hide evidence, sometimes without even meaning to. And on the other side, you have forensic toolmakers getting more and more powerful, finding new ways to uncover all those hidden traces.
And look, if there's one crucial thing you take away from all this, it's this. The cloud might feel abstract, like it's just out there. But it's always anchored to something physical. And the key to unlocking its secrets? Well, it's often sitting right here, on the very laptops and phones we use to get to it. That link between your device and the cloud, that's everything in these cases.
And that leaves us with one last, big, provocative question that was brought up in that NIST report. Instead of this endless cat and mouse game, what if we just redesigned our systems? What if we built our cloud platforms with forensics by design? Should the ability to legally and ethically investigate a crime be a core feature from the very beginning, instead of something we try to bolt on later? That's a huge debate. It's all about balancing privacy, security, and justice. And the answer is going to shape our entire digital future.